All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joaquin Esquivel, Chair of the State Water Resources Control Board. Today is Tuesday, January 6th. It is 9:02 a.m., and I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'm joined this morning by Vice Chair Doreen Diadamo, Board Member Sean McGuire, Board Member Laurel Firestone, and Board Member Nicole Morgan. This is a hybrid, and we're also joined this morning by our Executive Director, Eric Oppenheimer, our two Chief Deputies, Karen Mogus and Eric Ekdahl, our Chief Counsel, Michael Loffer, our Clerk of the Board is Courtney Tyler, and assisting her this morning is Margie Argel and Elizabeth Carrillo. As you can see, this is a hybrid meeting with both in-person and web components. If you're joining us virtually, you should be viewing us through our traditional webcast on the YouTube live website or the Cali PA website. But if you intend on commenting on any of today's items, you need to be on the Zoom platform. There is a link and instructions at the top of the agenda on how to get onto that platform. But if you're having any challenges, please do just email the clerk of the board at board.clerk@waterboards.ca.gov, and she can help get you onto the platform. Once you are on the platform, your camera will be off. You will be on mute until it's your turn to speak on the item you've indicated. For everyone in the room, good morning. Good to see you. Happy New Year, everyone. We're here in Sacramento in the California Environmental Protection Agency building. A few announcements for us here as well. Please do observe the exits. If we happen to have an emergency, we'll calmly file out to Cesar Chavez Plaza and await further direction. Also, if you intend on commenting on any items today, there is a QR code, I believe, and a laptop here at the side of the room where you can sign up. Once you are at the podium, please do introduce yourself and any affiliation if you feel so comfortable. And then lastly, for us here in the room, please do just silence your phone so we have an uninterrupted meeting today. This morning and this year, we're kicking things off actually with a presentation of a Superior Accomplishment Award, and would like to call up Darren Polhamus to present the award. Good to see you this morning, Mr. Polhamus.
Esquivel, and thank you for the opportunity to do this. I want to read the statement that we put together for this award. It's 1 day shy of a year ago, on January 7th, 2025, a series of destructive wildfires affected Los Angeles County. The largest of these, the Eaton and Palisade fires, resulted in the deaths of at least 30 people, evacuations of over 200,000, destruction of more than 18,000 homes and structures, and over 37,000 acres burned. During this time, Ashley Doomer, our section chief in Glendale, and her team, in a critical role of Southern California section chief for the Division of Water, took immediate action. During the immediate aftermath of these fires, Ashley and her team went above and beyond their duties to interact with 9 different public water systems under do not drink, do not boil water advisories in the aftermath of the fire. Her team's response effort included field inspections to assess water system infrastructure damages, providing guidance to water systems on restoring water service, and reviewing and granting approvals for sampling plans to investigate and remediate benzene contamination of water systems due to the wildfires. For a minimum of 2 months, 4 water systems were continuously affected by do not drink, do not boil water advisories, and her team was responding to numerous customer inquiries and public record action requests on the emergency response, often simultaneously. This extraordinary work effort continued after hours and weekends. Response to manage the drinking water emergency concurrently with the water systems experiencing the longest recoveries. The Division of Drinking Water could not have supported the wildfire response nearly as effective without Ashley and her team's efforts to successfully lift the last unsafe water notice on May 9th, 2025. So that summary gives a great impression of how catastrophic it was. We had never dealt with 9 large water systems instantaneously damaged to the extent that we had seen in the LA fires. It is unprecedented. And the amount of work is simply kind of unimaginable from the scale of what the staff went through. I will read the names of the staff here. Hopefully many of them have joined us remotely because these are our Southern California crews. So starting with Ashley. Ashley actually is away on maternity leave. She had a baby girl on New Year's Eve, so congratulations to her. I wouldn't expect her to be on today. Jason Cunningham, Chaideep, who unfortunately has passed away this summer. We lost a really valuable team member there. Dimitri Ginsburg, Terrence Kim, Bill Lang, Jean Leonardo dos Santos Kowalski, Elizabeth Esquivel, Misam Hijamarad, James Coe, Curtis Lee, Lillian Leong, Yuji Marsh, Matthew McGill, Ewan Hugh Park, Sadezra Hafiznazami, and Yvonne Heaney were part of that critical team that did that extra work for us, and just wanted to really appreciate their service to the public in that extraordinary effort and time. And then I want to also, as a second award, recognize Jason Spots, who's with me here today. He is our emergency coordinator. And Jason, during his time in this critical role as security and emergency management program manager for the Division of Drinking Water, took immediate action during the fires and during the immediate aftermath. He went above and beyond his job and duties coordinating water systems with other DDW staff, bringing our experience to bear from our previous fires and helping that, coordinating with FEMA, US EPA, DFA, Cal OES, DFA, and the many, many others that wanted to be involved in this massive emergency that sometimes were helpful and many times weren't. He managed the emergency tracking across 9 different public water systems, which were under different do not drink, do not use boil water advisories in the aftermath of the fires. Jason worked incredibly long hours, days and nights, weekends to manage the drinking water emergency response, all while making in-person visits to Los Angeles where appropriate. In fact, I usually found him down there when I called him, not here. This was an unequal personal effort of work to nearly around-the-clock times to ensure appropriate emergency response support was provided, and the Division of Drinking Water could not have supported the wildfire response nearly as effectively without him and the success of lifting the unsafe drinking water notice. So I'm super pleased to be able to present these awards almost on the anniversary of those fires. The work still continues. We have not stopped, actually, to this point in time. While the emergency part's over, so much rebuilding and so much effort still going in. Effort on our part to improve just our ability to respond, working on new draft orders and planning to convene water systems to get together to talk through what we might do together better in the future, because I think unfortunately California continues to face this threat in the future. So with that, I appreciate everyone and maybe people that were online that were able to join us. I know Courtney gave them the link if they want to pop their screens on and wave, and we can take a picture. Oh, there they are in the office even. Excellent. Awesome. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren. Really appreciate you elevating Jason and the Southern California branch group. It is hard to believe that it's been a year and still yet only a year from what was an incredible start to last year. To your point, none of us were expecting a catastrophic fire in January in Los Angeles. But to your point, because of all the response work that has gone on to previous wildfires, working with systems, everyone just jumped right into action. And it was incredibly rewarding to see how quickly everyone mobilized, both on the emergency front, but then to your point, all the work that's gone in here to recovery. And so just a huge amount of thanks from myself, and I know from the board here, to everyone, because unfortunately, to your point, this experience is going to be used in the future, unfortunately. We know we're going to have continued extreme weather events, whether it's wildfire, floods, or drought. And so the work that the Division of Drinking Water, along with our emergency response team, which without that, I don't know where we would be currently. And so glad that, just a few years ago, we were able to spool up that resource and team. So congratulations to the team. Just thank you for elevating and acknowledging the work, and know that we do still have work to do. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Yeah, do you want to do a quick photo with Jason? Yeah, it's our tradition. So, awkward dais photo.
There, use my phone, Eric. Right here, Jason.
Huge thanks again. All right, that now brings us to public forum, and I believe we have a few public forum commenters. Let me pull up my list. I don't have concurrently who's on the platform, so I will just name them and just let me know, clerk, if they're available or not. Uh, First person I'd like to call up is Jason Borsellino. Okay, and Mr. Borsellino, I believe you also signed up to speak during the hydro update, so we can circle back to you then. Our next speaker will be Tricia Velasquez, be followed by Tricia Velasquez, followed by Patricia Anjena, and then Regina Chicazola. Ms. Velasquez, you should have been provided an opportunity to come on camera and or unmute.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh,
I thought there was
there you
someone
are.
before me.
Oh, no,
Good
morning.
morning. Can you hear me all right?
we can, thank you.
All right. Good morning. My name is Tricia Velasquez. I'm the Central Valley organizer at Save California Salmon. Last month, our organization and others submitted requests for the Water Board to extend the public comment period for the updated Bay Delta plan, but we've not yet received a response. We would like to reiterate our request to extend the deadline until at least April 3rd and to hold hearings and workshops after this date. The current timeline provides barely a month to review such an extensive and impactful document and coincided with the holidays at the end of the year when many people were not available to participate in the process. The current schedule for the hearing also occurs during a time of year that is very challenging and dangerous for those from rural communities to travel as well as have access to reliable internet and electricity due to winter storms. This poses equity issues and prevents those most impacted by the plan from being able to participate in this important process. We therefore urge the Water Board to extend the public comment deadline and reschedule hearing dates to a time frame that allows for adequate time for document review, safe travel, reliable access to remote participation, and sufficient time for tribal consultation and community engagement. Providing additional time will strengthen the integrity of the process and ensure that the board receives informed input from the communities most affected by the Bay Delta management decisions. We urge you to grant the extension many of us have requested and notify us as soon as possible so that our communities can adequately plan their participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Velasquez. Appreciate you addressing the board here in public comment. I know we will be getting out a response here soon. And just thank you for the engagement on the Bay Delta plan and know that it is a top priority of the board. And so thank you. All right, next I would like to call up Patricia Anjena, be followed by Regina Chicazola, then Cynthia Cortez.
Good morning, board members. My name is Patricia Anjija. I'm the treasurer for Amador's Heart of Gold, which is a newly formed nonprofit organization. And our purpose is to provide financial, emotional, and educational support to families affected by childhood cancer residing in Amador County. In only the past 2 years, there have been 6 cases of childhood cancer diagnosed in Amador County, one new case that we just learned of recently. And the limited resources available in our county led to the forming of this organization by 2 of the moms of children with cancer, whose goal it is to have Amador's Heart of Gold be the organization families affected by childhood cancer can turn to. Thus far, our communities have come together in amazing ways to support the families that have been impacted by childhood cancer, and I know that Amador County will continue to show up for any new families facing this impossible situation. The reason I am here today is to urge the State Water Board to have environmental testing be done, as having 6 cases diagnosed in only the past 2 years. 4 of these cases are children living in the city of Ione, seems to be more than just a coincidence. Per the National Cancer Institute, the national average for childhood cancer rates is 0.0048%. And Amador County's 6 cases out of a population of 41,029 per the 2020 U.S. Census gives us a rate of 0.015%, which is 3 times the national average. Even more concerning is that having 4 of those cases in Ione, either living in the city or going to school here, with a population of 5,306 per the 2020 U.S. Census, it gives us a rate of 0.075%, which is almost 16 times the national average. There have been many articles published in the Ledger Dispatch regarding previous contamination with the Mule Creek Prison water system in 2018, and I believe in 2020 as well as 2022. There was an article in the Appeal on May 15th of 2025 entitled, "If You Want to Live, Don't Drink the Water," and it discusses the prison population having significant illness from the drinking water at the prison. There have been a lot of chemicals and pollutants entering our water system due to having mining industries, Kennedy and Argonaut mines, for example. They are Superfund sites. We also have the nuclear plant not that far from my own, and it's just come to the minds of the moms with kids with cancer if those are possible contributions to those cancer cases. In either instance, we just want testing to be done to rule anything out. I have gone to the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board meeting and spoke with them. I've gone to public health, both regionally and statewide, and various other health and environmental agencies as well. So I'm asking all environmental and public health related agencies in the state and regionally to do their due diligence, make sure that there's no cause environmentally for these issues cropping up. We're not trying to have a blame game or anything. We just want answers. If it just happens to be coincidence, or say, for instance, other factors like, plastic water bottles, that's a big thing as well. We just want to rule out things so that it'll ease the minds of moms in our area. We've already lost one of our warriors, Mighty Mateo, at only 21 months old. And we want to prevent that from happening because no family should have to go through the tragedy that is childhood cancer. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanjija. I appreciate your advocacy and work here. Do know that regrettably we don't have resources for, say, community testing or that sort of deep public health nexus investigation that I'm aware of. But I will bring this up to my colleagues here at Cal EPA and make sure that there isn't a way that we could contribute to some coordinated understanding of what's happening in the region. But really appreciate your advocacy and work here. Thank you. All right, next I'd like to call up Regina Chicazola, be followed by then Cynthia Cortez.
Hi, good morning and Happy New Year, board.
Happy New Year.
I am here for two reasons. One is I would like to echo the earlier comments from our organizer, Tricia, for asking for there to be an extension with the Bay Delta Plan hearing, especially, but definitely the comments too. And I just wanted to reiterate the reason two of us are here this morning is because neither of us knew who would have internet, because we both live in rural areas that are impacted by this plan. So far, just within the county I live in, we've had a giant water system outage, a fire, and multiple floods and passes be closed during snow just since the new year. So this is in less than a week. And I think it just really hits home that to plan for the travel from all the different places that would be impacted to Sacramento. And I know that there's also Zoom options, but like I said, we never know if we're going to have internet. And with that, I also would like to bring up, there have been some major changes, not necessarily from the board, but from the federal government that we really need time to address and think about. And one of those being that the Bureau of Reclamation no longer is guaranteed to be engaging in the voluntary agreements, and also has changed their biological opinion to an option that hasn't been fully analyzed. And even the state is saying will impact the state's water system. So knowing what the benefits of the voluntary agreements are and going over all that documentation with the time allowed, with there being some real changes and challenges. We've also done an analysis of some of the Trinity River impacts and found really different impacts with the limited time that we have than what the actual plan says. And that might not be because of the board. It might be the board got the wrong information from the Bureau of Reclamation. So anyway, we need more time, pretty much is what I would like to say. And I think under the racial equity action plan, this is a really reasonable request. Also like for our areas, a lot of people get internet through the tribal offices, and the libraries, which have been closed for 2 weeks. So people haven't even had the chance to dig into the documents that don't have internet going to their houses, which is not an option to a lot of people. A lot of people also don't have electricity. You're aware of the North State issues, I'm sure. But we've been engaging in this process since 2017 now. And we feel like our participation is really critical, and North State's residents is really critical. With that said, that was just one of the things I wanted to bring up, and it sounds like you are working on an answer. But I also wanted to urge the board in the year ahead to start really thinking about the threats from the Trump administration to our water systems, and to our rivers and to our biodiversity, and even to our firefighting efforts. And think about ways that we can make sure that the decisions coming out of California are scientifically sound, and actually respond to the real-time threats that we're dealing with. And so with that, while you're looking at opportunities and looking forward to the year, I would like to really urge you to move forward with in-stream flow processes and have those be science-based. And obviously, the Bay Delta Plan does deal with that, but we're involved in a lot of these processes also on the Klamath River and the Scott Shasta. We've asked for action to be taken to protect the Trinity Rivers in stream flows and carryover storage. We've worked in Deer Creek, in Antelope Creek, and areas in the upper part of the Sacramento River. And these areas are critical to not only winter run and spring run salmon continuing to thrive, or at least recover in the area, but also to our drinking water supplies. And I think that is really overlooked, that the North State's drinking water supplies are so threatened by commercial agriculture and not very well planned out water rights, and climate change, frankly. So that the fact that you've started these processes, at least in the Upper Sacramento and the Scott and Shasta, means a lot to our communities. We finally have a chance to move forward in a good way. But I would like to say, I think in these situations, along with the Bay Delta Plan, we should be having science guide the process and then look at local cooperative solution and voluntary agreements. Because yeah, there's a place for those, but we need the actual numeric flows in place. And we need to look at the science first. And it's really necessary right now, being that we have the Trump administration stepping into so many of the decisions that impact our state and impact your decisions. So with that, I have 10 seconds left, but you're about to have a lot of temporary urgency change petitions in front of you based on this new biological opinions. You're going to have 401 certifications that Trump's going against in front of you. And I just said, please let science and the communities and community involvement lead the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chicazola. Happy New Year to you. It's good to see you. And again, appreciate the continued engagement. We will get a response out. I'll note on when it comes to the Bay Delta Plan and additional time, I will note that much of what was released was actually significantly similar, or if not the same, to what was released in July. And so I understand, folks are feeling that's a lot of material to go through in a short amount of time. Hopefully folks have been, going through the program implementation and documentation from July, because it is significantly similar. So, but nonetheless, we will get a response out, and just thank you for the continued engagement, continued participation in this dialogue. It's really critical to your point, and just really appreciative. All right, next I'd like to call up Cynthia Cortez. Ms. Cortez. Oh, there we are. Should be unmuted at this point.
Can you hear me?
We can. Good morning, Ms. Cortez.
Good morning, Chair Escobar and board members. I am Cynthia Cortez, Policy Program Manager with Restore the Delta. I am here to reiterate the request submitted by the Delta Tribal Environmental Coalition, or DTEC, for the 60-day extension of time to provide public comment on the December 12th revised Bay Delta Plan update. 33 business days to review and analyze and respond to the board's over 3,000 pages of regulatory text is an insufficient amount of time for adequate public review. First, the timing of the release of these documents is very much in line with the board's pattern of releasing critical documents during the holidays. 2025 was a very strenuous year for our organizations and the communities we work to protect. The year started off with a direct assault from the federal administration on the health and economic vitality of the Delta communities, and that continued throughout the year unforgivingly through the weekends and holidays. So we asked the board to respect the only time of the year that we all collectively take off for the holidays. Second, it is imperative that the board resolves the pending investigation to the civil rights complaint that was submitted by DTEC to the EPA now more than 3 years ago. And to resolve that before moving forward with any updates to the Bay Delta Plan. It has been over a year since the board received a proposed settlement agreement from EPA. Despite noticing the complaint for consideration at over 24 closed session meetings, the board has not provided any substantive response to that. We urge the board to grant a 60-day extension of the written comment period and a deferred or additional public hearing dates necessary for tribes, Delta communities, and organizations to participate in the process. Thank you for your time today and the opportunity.
Thank you as well, Ms. Cortez. Good to see you and appreciate your comments here and addressing the board this morning. All right, I believe that wraps up our public commenters. And again, really appreciate folks that address the board here through public forum. And now brings us to our first item of board business, which is consideration of adoption of the December 2nd board meeting minutes. Look to fellow board colleagues if there's any adjustment to those minutes, and then otherwise, I'd be ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call a roll call vote?
Board Member Morgan.
Aye.
Board Member Firestone.
Aye.
Board Member McGuire.
Aye.
Vice Chair Diadamo.
Aye.
I believe you might need to abstain. You were absent.
Oh, okay. I'll abstain.
Thank you.
I'll double check, but I think that's, yes. Thank
Chair
you.
Escobar.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. The board meeting minutes are adopted. Next, we have an uncontested item, which is a consideration of a resolution approving an amendment to Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Plan to establish site-specific water quality objectives for chloride in Reach 6 of the Los Angeles River. The fact it's uncontested means everyone did a really great job on it. And unless there's a reason to pull it off, look to fellow board colleagues for a motion.
I'll move to adopt item 2.
Second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call a roll call vote?
Board Member McGuire.
Aye.
Vice Chair Diadamo.
Aye.
Board Member Firestone.
Aye.
Board Member Morgan.
Aye.
And Chair Escobar.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. And the vote is unanimous and the item is approved. Next, we have our informational item on current hydrologic conditions and response. And I'd like to welcome up Jessica Bean to kick us off here. Yeah, and federal partners. Good to see you this morning, Mr. Nichols. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good
start to the year.
morning, Board and Chair Escobar. I'm Jessica Bean with the Division of Water Rights, and I'm going to do, we have a panel presentation for you today for the current hydrologic conditions and response. I have with me here Adam Nichols and Levi Johnson from the Bureau of Reclamation, and then I believe on the Zoom, on the Zoom should be Michael Anderson from the Department of Water Resources. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So we're going to go ahead and start with the Department of Water Resources update and then move over to the Bureau. And then I'll do a few of our normal slides to wrap things up today. So is Michael on? Okay, so Michael can go ahead and start.
All right, can we go to the next slide? There we are. So welcome to 2026, the first quarter of the water year's in the books. I thought we'd start with a title slide showing what a lot of December was like for us here in the valley and under that nice blanket of white fog, but there in the Sierra, some snow, not a lot, and a lot of clear conditions, interrupted by some rather impressive storms over the holidays. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so last year, just to remind you, a La Nina year, we had very warm conditions, top third to top 10% for most of our counties, and pretty much as expected La Nina pattern for precipitation, wetter in the north, drier in the south, with some of our Southern California counties having their third driest water year on record and eighth warmest. Let's go to the next slide and see where we are in the first quarter. And we see still very warm. We do see the impact of the fog with some cooler conditions there in the valley, but a lot of our other counties that were in the clear have seen some really warm temperatures. In fact, we had one day in December where it was 49 degrees in Sacramento and nearly 70 in Yosemite Valley. So definitely anomalous. But precip-wise, we've had some really interesting conditions. Very wet conditions in Southern California, and not as wet, but I wanted to zoom in on two counties. We have Ventura County in Southern California that's had 18.5 inches of rain so far. They only expect about 5.6 at this point in the water year, so definitely running well ahead of average. Our colleagues up in Del Norte County have had 35.6 inches, so closing in on 3 feet of rain so far this water year, but they expect almost 41 inches by this point. So they're running a little below normal. So it's not that it hasn't rained up there, it's just not raining as much as it normally would, whereas down south we've had a couple of storms that have dropped some really impressive totals. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so our California Water Watch, for those that like to follow along and see how we're doing, in a statewide look, we're running 154% of average for the state and about 57% of our water year in the books in terms of precipitation. We look over on the snowpack piece of the puzzle, we've got about a third, a little more of the seasonal total. Definitely distributed not uniformly. In the north, we're running behind because the lower elevation mountains of Northern California had a lot more rain than snow, so really only between 60-70% of average, whereas in the Southern Sierra, higher elevation mountains, running above average. Reservoirs on the whole are running ahead of average, which is good. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so here we are. We've got some numbers for you for the regional snowpack information. A lot of lines on there. If you want to look for that royal blue line, that's this year. Northern region, 23% of a water year, our April 1 peak, 61% for percent to date. You see it improving as we head south, as the mountains get higher and had more opportunity to catch snow. Let's go. Next slide. All right, so let's talk about this. We've had two La Nina years, but they're really coming together rather differently, and let's explain why. La Nina happens when we kind of flatten the equator dipole temperature gradient. That allows the jet stream to meander more. And the high pressure in the Pacific then becomes a really key feature we want to keep track of. Last year, we saw an amazing amount of time where it was right over California, or just offshore to allow that cold air to come down in the Great Basin. When that happens, that's when we get those Santa Ana and Diablo winds that caused all the problems at the beginning of 2025. This year, we've seen it move more. It has been really further to the west, north of Hawaii, allowing cutoff lows to come down offshore. And when cutoff lows come down offshore, that has the opportunity to spin moisture into the state. And we had that happen in October a couple times, a really big storm in November that ran into the remains of Hurricane Priscilla over Southern California, leading to some really heavy precipitation in Southern California. In fact, Ventura County had over 7 inches of rain in November of this year. For all of water year 2025, they only had a little over 9 inches. Just to give you a sense of scale of how things are and playing out and how one storm makes a big difference. Now, I mentioned back in October, watch for long duration atmospheric rivers. And sure enough, right around the Christmas holiday, we had over 100 hours of atmospheric river conditions in the state, leading to some localized flooding. The main flood control system really performed as expected. We're flowing the Sacramento Basin, everything's staying under control there. And that happens when that high pressure moves up closer to the Aleutians. Jet stream decides it doesn't really want to go up and around. It's going to cut under and bring in that tropical moisture right to us. That cold air coming down from the polar jet stream, the infamous polar vortex, really has been impacting eastern third of the U.S. more this year than where it was further west last year, bringing that cold air into the Great Basin, causing more windy conditions for California. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so back in October, Climate Prediction Center said this is what the next 3 months should look like. Above average temperatures for the southern third of California, northern 2/3, equal chances. Really no information in the climate system to give them guidance one way or the other. However, they really do expect precip to be dry from the Bay Area south. Now let's go to the update here in the second part of December on the next slide. And we see that they've moved the warm line north and the dry line south, indicating that there are going to be those opportunities for those punctuated wet events. And because of those, they're a little uncertain about how everything north of Monterey is going to be, but really do expect our southern counties to dry out as we move through the rest of winter. So let's go to the last slide, I believe. No, got one more. Just wanted to show you over the next 2 weeks, we do see a lot of light blue in our atmospheric river landfall tool, indicating that we don't expect a lot of precip activity for the first in the 3 weeks of January here. So might lead you to believe, whoa, January is going to come in below average. Not necessarily. We could get a storm there at the end of January, and we've seen one big storm in a week can deliver a month's worth of precip. So that's what we have to really keep an eye on. Next slide. So watching where that Pacific high pressure is through the rest of winter is really going to be key to our water year outcome. And expectations, a lot of variable conditions, and just got to keep watching out for those extremes. They do abate as we get into March, as our water year moves its way towards the dry season. So really looking at the end of January and February is probably those next opportunities for extremes. With that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Really appreciate the update here on the hydrology. I know, for many of us looking at that dry December, those late storms that started to come in here in December were really welcomed, and sounding like it's drying out here for January again. So I know it really continues to emphasize for all of us that each water year is like a snowflake, unique unto itself, and really just have to learn how to continue to make sure we're operating off of real-time data and information, and as best we can, continuing to improve that seasonal forecasting. On that, I was just wondering, Mr. Anderson, if you've had any sort of further discussions with colleagues, whether it's at the federal level or other Western states, around continuing to improve those seasonal and subseasonal forecasts, and what it might take to make sure we stay on top of that.
Right. So yes, we are continuing our Coalition of the Willing. We have a group of researchers just working with the resources that they have. We got together in November, and what we discussed this year was the lack of consistency among the different drivers of our seasonal weather this year, meaning you have a lot of different forces fighting each other. That's where you end up with a much more variable condition kind of year. It's not one thing that sticks through the year because everything's lined up. In this case, there's a lot of different things pushing on those large scale patterns that lead to periods of very dry conditions interrupted by periods of very wet conditions. We are continuing to advocate for a Western seasonal forecasting pilot from the federal government in the renewal of the Weather Act. And we'll continue with the coalition to look at opportunities to improve our capabilities in the seasonal forecasting. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. I know as a member of the Western States Water Council, it has been a focus of a number of our Western states. And to your point, this kind of coalition of the willing, you know, in the West, we're very aware how dependent we are on our ability to forecast what is increasingly, you know, uncertain hydrology. So just thanks. I wanted to make sure and put a pin and a note on that. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to speak here today before the board. Before I do that, I just want to recognize the passing of Congressman LaMalfa just recently this morning. Leader in California Water. It's where most of he represented District 1, where most of our water comes from. So for those folks up there, our hearts and prayers go out to you, our thoughts and prayers to his family as well. So looking forward now, I just want to note that I'm now into my 10th month of the acting role of the regional director. I can no longer, I maybe have 2 more months left to say I'm still learning all of this, but we're working through that. The Central Valley Project is a complex project with multiple facilities, multiple watersheds, and competing demands for these limited water resources. We sometimes have abundance, and then other times we have very little. We coordinate very closely with our state partners, State Board, DWR. We're routinely talking with them and coordinating, and I'm accompanied here with Levi Johnson today, who will go over sort of our situation in the forecasting a little bit here in just a second. But we do, despite having the largest reservoir in the state of California, it is still kind of tiny compared to, say, our Colorado River friends who have lots of storage, but just not the hydrology. So these small reservoirs and all the competing demands and the flashy water systems that we deal with does make it a very complex situation and does change day to day. And our coordination with DWR is critical on that matter. We continue to commit to our open, as transparent as possible through our and committing to our scientific tools for making better decision making. This process is sometimes complicated. It's sometimes there are disagreements about how you implement the science. There are folks who will continue to disagree with the process, and that's okay. That open dialogue and that open conversation is something that we're trying to encourage. So it is my sincere commitment that we will continue to focus on doing that and making those improvements to our communication. And with that, I'll turn it over to Levi, who will talk about our current water year.
Thanks, Adam. Board Chair, members, thank you for the opportunity to provide a brief update on water year 2026, really from a CVP or Central Valley Project perspective. Next slide, please. Just to organize the next 18 or so slides, we'll start with current conditions, specifically on the precipitation. We can walk through some of the major Central Valley Project reservoirs, where those stand. We'll take a peek at the 2-week and monthly precip temp outlooks, and then close it up with a couple key points. Next slide, please. So at the last update we provided early October, we were just kicking off the water year, a lot of unknowns. And we have kicked off the water year in a very strong fashion. Again, directing you to the left of that graph, October 1st, the start of the water year. Here, looking at the Northern Sierra 8-station index, we're at about 30.2 accumulated inches, so very strong. You can track the average curve, the blue shaded curve there for context, and then you'll also notice that that point is very close to some of these extremely wet years. So definitely worth noting there. It's 156% of average. And, just very strong start and hoping that that will continue as we make our way, especially through January, February, and March. Next slide, please. San Joaquin, similar, starting October 1st at the beginning of the water year, and now yesterday or 2 days before, we're at 19.3 inches, again above that average curve, 150% of average roughly. And again, very close to that 2016-17 curve. So definitely very strong, but again, we've got a little ways to go, especially with the January, February, March wet season, and hoping to get to this, robust cumulative precip average for the entire year. Next slide, please. So quick snapshot at where we're at. Draw your attention, the water year WY 2026 is where we were at in storage a few days ago on some of the major reservoirs. Again, consistent with Dr. Anderson. If you look at the final, the last column there, above the 15% year average across the board. The exception there on that graph is the Federal San Luis storage, though that reservoir is a function of Delta exports and south of Delta demands, not natural inflow. And that actually has been gaining and is expected to continue to gain. I guess one outlier is Oroville. It says CVP reservoirs. Oroville's not a CVP reservoir. It's operated by our Department of Water Resources partners. But I'll just note very robust storage and way above the 15-year average as well. Next slide, please. So let's take a quick, let's focus in on some of our major reservoirs on the CVP side, starting way up north with Trinity. It is sitting over 2 million acre foot of storage. And again, similarly, you can track the light blue shaded for the averages on that date. A couple other curves there for you to take a look at. But very high. We have been implementing a synchronization flow on the Trinity River. We actually cut the reductions on those flows recently and will likely be increasing releases because of the response from these latest systems and inflows. So above average and very dynamic operation on the Trinity. Next slide, please. Looking down at Shasta, so we started about around 2.6 million acre foot back on October 1st, and the trajectory of that line, especially with these latest systems, is telling. Over 3.5 million acre foot right now as we make our way into January. Again, the average curve shaded below for some context. There is a topic conservation line represented in red. We are encroached at Shasta. This is a typical operation. And we have been increasing releases into the Sacramento and will continue to do that. We are on the receding limb of inflows with these latest systems. So as those come in, we'll track. And again, this will be a dynamic operation in terms of what kind of releases we have into the Sacramento River. Next slide, please. On the American, apologize, I'm not sure why I pulled these curves. It makes it look very messy, but again, starting October 1st, just below 450,000 acre foot storage. And again, you could just see the trajectory, especially mid-December to present, over 600,000 acre feet. Folsom is a little reservoir that could, very large area to that basin for a relatively small, just under 1 million acre foot of storage. We are also encroached on Folsom, typical operation. Those releases are increasing this week. I think we'll be up to probably around 11,000 CFS release. And again, very dynamic. We'll see how these inflows and recession of those inflows play out, and we'll adjust accordingly. And of course, above average as well for that current storage. Next slide, please. Okay, down to the Stanislaus. New Melones has been quite boring the last couple of years. Started just over 1.6 million acre foot of storage October 1st. We have gained, which is great, especially you can see that inflection point with these latest systems, just over 1.7 million acre foot currently. So we do have plenty of storage. We are expecting to increase with these inflows. The challenging operations right now on New Melones have been more related to the regulatory reservoir Tulloch just downstream. We get a lot of flashy inflows there that are hard to predict and forecast, requiring us to make a lot of jumps in our releases, and I'd expect those to continue at least through this week. Next slide, please. So I mentioned Federal San Luis. This is a snapshot of total San Luis joint project. So this is the combined federal and state storage. We began just around 1.1 million acre foot October 1st. We've climbed 1.4 million acre foot and are continuing to climb as exports have been fairly strong and are expected to continue strong. And again, you'll see the trend there. We'd like to top out around April and would be very appreciative if we could get to that just 2 million acre foot mark before the dry season starts. Next slide, please. Finally, down south on the San Joaquin, here's Millerton Reservoir. This is operated by Reclamation South Central California Area Office. Started around 250,000 acre foot at the beginning of the water year, climbed to just under 400,000, I think around 390,000 acre foot today. So nice inflow response above average, but a very dynamic reservoir, very challenging to operate. Next slide, please. Received some good constructive feedback from my last presentation. I didn't talk about the Delta, so apologies. Here's Jones Pumping Plant. Globally speaking, our export operation, October through December, has been very dynamic. We've had water quality requirements that we've been operating to in coordination with Department of Water Resources. We've had export inflow or outflow requirements come into play. We're currently managing to Old and Middle River management, so that's a NEPA, ESA regulation. And on the federal side, we've also and I guess on the state side, have had facility outages, planned and unplanned, that we operate and coordinate around as well. So very dynamic, very typical, and we expect that type of dynamic Delta operation as we move through the OMR management season here through the rest of the water year. Current conditions, we're supporting on average between 6,000 and 7,000 CFS of combined export. Again, that's very dependent on how inflows make their way into the Delta, and very dynamic situation. Next slide, please. So thanks, Dr. Anderson, for showing the 3-month. I've provided the 2-week, and then we'll look at the monthly. So on precip, again, consistent with what was reported. Really that 2-week period, not a lot on the horizon. You can see that indicated with this below chance of normal precip. And then also on the January as a whole, equal chances through most of Northern California. Next slide, please. And also consistent, the 2-week and monthly temperature outlook trending above average, also consistent with what Dr. Anderson presented. This has direct impacts on snowpack. It has direct impacts on how these inflows make their way into the system and our reservoir operations, and of course, how our snowpack will set up for later in the year. Next slide, please. So we looked at 8-station, 5-station, very robust, very nice. We looked at how reservoir storages have responded accordingly, very nice. But of course, snowpack is the critical component on how the rest of the water year will shape up. Very consistent. I won't duplicate what Dr. Anderson reported. I will just note or reiterate that trend of kind of below normal for the state in the Northern Sierra compared to what we've been seeing in the Southern Central Sierra. It has been nice to see these early systems benefit the kind of the South 80 corridor, which was not the case the last 2 years. So that's been a welcome relief. There is still a ways for us to get to that full snowpack buildup by April, so we'll definitely be watching that closely. Next slide, please. So this bar chart was empty in October. These are the monthly breakdowns of total precip in the Northern Sierra on the 8-station index and then the San Joaquin. I'll note similar trend in the Tulare and Southern Sierra as well. I just haven't shown them here. January has gotten off to a good start. 2 weeks of dryness in the horizon. That's not abnormal, but it is something to take a look at, and still a chance for those January bars to creep up closer to those monthly averages or even surpass them if they decided to do that. And then I'll just note the February, March time period, and especially the snowier January, February months will be very telling on how that snowpack shapes up. Next slide, please. Landfall tool, Dr. Anderson showed this. This is kind of not gut wrenching, but you like to see a lot of those blobs a couple weeks out, and knowing not all of them will manifest, but this can change very quickly. But again, consistent with that, expectation of probably a couple weeks of not a lot coming towards California in terms of precip. Next slide. So just global takeaways, precip above average, northern central Sierra, big benefit for the CVP reservoirs and Oroville. January is off to a good start. We are expecting those a couple dry weeks. It doesn't mean January will be below average. Those inflows into our reservoirs have been strong, partly because those systems have been coming in warm, high snow level. And then also just reiterating this lagging snowpack specifically in the northern Sierra, worth mentioning. And with that, next slide. I will thank you for your time and attention. Back over to you, Board Chair.
The thanks is all mine, truly. Mr. Nichols, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Anderson, really appreciate you all joining us here. Mr. Nichols, I appreciate your acknowledgement of the passing of Congressman LaMalfa. Read just as I was coming in about that, and I join you and hear just really giving thanks ultimately to Mr. LaMalfa and his work, and hear just thoughts with his family and friends and colleagues. So thank you for that. And also just thank you for the note on the need for just continued transparency, I feel. To your point, this is a very complex system. As we've said, each water year is kind of presenting itself uniquely to us. And there's a lot of decision-making that's happening disparate through the watershed, certainly with the Central Valley Project and the State Water Project, but others as well. So I think being able to be here, be able to speak about where we are in the water year and what is happening on operations, I think is really helpful for us all collectively, so that we continue to do what we can to ensure that we do have a transparent system that is based off of science-based decision-making, and that we're having a place to be able to communicate all that is ongoing. And so just thank you for being here, and thank you for presenting. I guess, you touched on some of the points to kind of watch out for when it comes to the diminished snowpack on, southern or the northern components. Wondering if there's anything else that I think is important to note, at least at this point in the water year, as we're looking at operations. And I do appreciate the Delta operations slide. I think it'd be helpful if maybe we kind of had a graph, kind of looking at what outflow is, looking at where project operations are, just so that we all collectively continue to, I think, just develop that deeper understanding of the complexities that we're managing through. And, what is staying in the system, what is coming out of the system, something that I know is, not easy to parse out oftentimes, but increasingly, as we think about real-time operations, I think, what is the data that comes along with those real-time operations that is best to sort of elevate, I think is worthwhile. But just wondering if there's anything, that wasn't necessarily covered that you think might be important to make sure and flag as we start to walk through this water year, whether it's requirements from, ESA side or D1641, just wanting to continue to understand what are the limitations or ultimately the regulations that the projects are operating to.
I'll just answer that globally. So when I think of Central Valley Project operations, and I think about the question, like, what is January going to bring? How is the water going to shape up? There's just a lot of uncertainties that we're dealing with. So the meteorological uncertainties, specifically on precip and snowpack, are going to be a huge factor January through March, no doubt. Looking beyond that, the meteorological uncertainties on whatever snowpack is there and how it makes its way down is a huge issue in terms of inflows, water temperatures, et cetera. Delta operations is always uncertain. Are we going to be operating to OMRI? We don't know what the fish are going to do January through June. And so that's always an uncertainty. It's very hard to bake that in to guess on what we think our capacities will be in terms of Delta export. And then also the hydrology in the delta that will come into play as well. And you can pick any certain ones. What's going to happen with Vernalis flows, for example, that's a huge driver on that, is a big uncertainty. And then coupled on that is my favorite is the uncertainties with our facilities. There's always outages, issues at our reservoirs, our export facilities. It's just a part of operating a system like this. How those manifest will also, be a driver in how this water year plays out. So that's how I think about it.
Yeah, really appreciate that, Mr. Johnson. Vice Chair.
Could you look back over this last storm though on Delta operations, as far as how the system was managed, whether it was OMR or some sort of flex that you were able to operate around?
We do. We coordinate that with DWR on a daily basis. We, since December 25th specifically, have been operating to what's called a first flush condition. So that's the start of our OMRI, Old Middle River Index management season. And since then, we have been operating project exports to an OMRI level. So that's what's been driving our ability to export water south specifically.
I appreciate that. And if I can ask further, I know that I think that Old and Middle River Index management that you're managing to kind of has a range basically, right? And it's around negative flows on Old and Middle River. At this point, that's being allowed to go up to what, negative 5,000 CFS or so?
No more negative than minus
No more.
5,000, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just wondering then kind of to what negative flow, I guess, the projects have been generally operating to. Has it been up around that 5,000 or has it been, somewhere lower, I imagine?
The delta is very dynamic, so you could look at it daily. We try and target that minus 5,000. There have been instances where we're not aligned on that OMRI level, which if you look back at what those actual values were, they'll be more conservative than that minus 5,000. But that we strive for that range.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's helpful. Looking to other fellow board colleagues if they have any questions or thoughts for folks. All right, hearing none currently. Go, Ms. Bean, I don't know if you have further wrap up.
I do. I have a few more slides. I will be skipping a few because you've seen them already. So I don't want to, at this point, triple dip. So next slide, please. And then next slide. So we've seen that one. I don't want to hammer this. We've been living through it, but this Thule fog, this persistent 2 to 3 weeks of blanket was a pretty big deal. And just wanted to show another way to look at the data to compare. But so this is from NOAA, one of the satellite images. And then if you go to the next slide and take a look at the mean daily temperature percentile for December, you can see that you have this reverse where you have the very much above average temperatures we've been hearing about, and then the colder area right where that was. And just kind of a fun way to look at this anomaly that we're seeing. Next slide, please. And then, of course, we jumped into some pretty substantial flooding, debris flows in different areas from a series of atmospheric rivers. And so again, some of the whiplash that we hear about with our weather, just taking a peek at those. And then if we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is one we'll just go ahead and skip this one and the next one and the next one. You've seen these as well. Again, our snow, and we'll be touching base on these when I come back at a future meeting. Next slide, please. And then again, when we look at the major reservoirs too, they're all above average at this point. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's take a quick look then at the Scott and Shasta rivers. So the Scott River system, again, you're familiar with this chart, but that the red line is the minimum flow requirements. And for December, it was 150 CFS, and then going into January, it's 200. And we had a maximum daily flow of above 5,800 CFS. And then we did have a minimum daily flow of 145, which is right below that line. It was from December 13th through 15th. Our staff were working very closely with diverters to manage, and then it quickly rebounded above that 150 around December 16th, and then it's maintained there. Let's see. Okay, next slide, please. And then we have on the Shasta River, there was for both December and January, that minimum flow requirement is 125 CFS. And throughout December, we had a maximum of about 700 CFS, and the minimum daily flow was 165. So we did stay up above there for Shasta. And then if you go to the next slide, just taking a look at Dwinell Reservoir storage for 2026, we're really close to 27,000 acre feet, which is about 54% full. If you compare that to the past, we're quite high in comparison to where we've been in in previous years. Next slide, please. Okay, this is my last slide. Just want to do a quick update on the annual reporting for water rights. To date, we've had over 3,000 reports submitted, and we have 4,500 user accounts created. We're getting, I think, about 500 a day at this point for the past couple of days, which is pretty substantial. It was a little bit of a lull during the holiday, which we expected, but we're back at it. We were at 3,100 last time we spoke with you, so we're growing. We've done quite a bit of staff training, so we have a lot of support now on to help with the backlog of help requests that we have. I do want to note, however, that we're receiving a substantial amount of requests for help, and so people should not expect to receive immediate assistance still. We're working through that. We have a lot of folks working on it, but it is still challenging. Email is the best way and the fastest route to get to us, but we do have our phone line as well. I note all of this because the reports are due by January 31st. And if it does take us 1 to 2 weeks to get back to somebody, and if they don't start until right then, they're going to already be past when they need to submit those reports. So it's really important that folks get started now. We are going to do some live office hours to help folks. We have a virtual office hours on January 14th, where folks are just going to be able to either call in or join a Zoom call. We'll have staff available right then. We'll queue them up to get help at that point. We're also working with the Sacramento Farm Bureau to do an in-person event in Sacramento on January 23rd. And I suspect more of these will come up as we see the need. We're trying these out to see what's happening. We are going to run these through February as well, so we're not just going to stop them in January. And then finally, I just want to note that we have a lot of guides and videos on our Cal Water's website. We have been updating those regularly. And really, for folks that need support, we're trying hard to get some very good resources out there so people may be able to actually answer their questions if they're waiting for us to get back to them. So really encouraging people to go there and use those as well. And that's my final slide. So thank you.
Really appreciate that update on the reporting, especially, and reminder to folks. When it comes to the virtual office hours on January 14th, for folks to sign up to that, should they just go to the website for Cal Waters and it should be up there? Just wondering where best to direct folks if they're interested in that.
Absolutely. We're going to have the information up today. We just quickly made the decision as of yesterday. So we're going to get that information up today, and we're going to send an email blast out to folks. We're also coordinating pretty closely with the rest of our Farm Bureau contacts and our Cattlemen's Association contacts, and they're helping to push the information out too. They've been very supportive and helpful resource for us in getting out to folks. But yeah, people there will be a phone line. They don't have to register. They can just call in, or if they're interested in joining through Zoom, they'll be able to just log directly into Zoom, and we'll have a waiting room for them, and we'll basically assign them and get them in the queue to get people to help them at that moment.
And huge thanks to Farm Bureau. I know the Association of California Water Agencies also did a webinar. Cattlemen's, everyone that's going out there helping us to connect to their membership to make sure that they're aware of this change, are getting the help and support that they need in order to make it. And really looking forward to what the data will be better providing for us. And I know you've done it in the past, and we'll just request we do kind of where are we sort of check in as we kind of come close to the deadline, just so that we can give some numbers to folks out there so we can all collectively understand kind of how we are doing this year compared to previous years with the new platform. So thank you. Vice Chair.
Well, thank you for all that additional outreach, and it looks like the word is finally getting out. So I think we're all going to be really interested in seeing what those final numbers are. An additional request, though, on those that, with respect to those that have reached out, are you talking about these are email requests or they're coming in through the phone line that you may not be able to get back to these individuals?
We are going to get back to everyone. It's just, as you can imagine, very challenging to coordinate with people. You know, someone calls and leaves a message and we play a little bit of phone tag back and forth. But it's just, it takes a certain amount of time and we have a limited amount of people. So it isn't going to be an immediate response. And that's where we have upped the number of people that can help. And we're really trying to triage those things and get back to people. But we will get back to them. It's just if somebody calls us on January 30th, and needs help getting into Cal Waters, it's highly unlikely we're going to get back to them by January 31st when they would need to submit their report. I will say there is a little bit of a grace period on the late reporting, so it isn't such a firm deadline at that point. But it is something that we encourage people to come in as early as possible for that because it's just going to take time.
Yeah, no, that's great. I misunderstood. I thought that you may not be able to get back by January 31st, but you are making an attempt, so at least even if you leave a message, you can direct them, check the website in the meantime. There's a lot of FAQs. You might be able to get your questions answered.
Yes, and we're trying to regularly update our messages, both on our email auto replies and our voicemail to let people know if there are other options for them to help direct them in those areas too while they're waiting.
Thank you. And then I just had a quick question on Dwinelle Reservoir. And this is, just not remembering. Could those higher numbers be due to management or it's just a big precip year in that area?
I do not know. And I'm wondering, Eric Bechtel,
I know Dwinelle comes up frequently in terms of management options, but I'm just not remembering if they're actively holding water back because of the issue with cold water and the sort of the exchanges that they've been talking about in that area.
My understanding is it's primarily driven by precipitation, but we will reach out and we'll come back with additional information next update.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Looking to other fellow board colleagues, if there's any questions or comments on the hydro update. Hearing none. Thank you all incredibly, and Happy New Year. We'll see what 2026 has in store for us here. And look forward to, let's figure out when an appropriate moment to come back and continue to circle back on operations and the hydrologic conditions with folks. I think, again, this has just been very helpful, I know for me, and hopefully helpful for other folks as well. And I think I'm looking to make sure we continue to use the space here to transparently discuss what's happening out there and help bring folks along. So much appreciation. Thank you. All right, that wraps. Oh, wait, apologies. I do have one commenter, I believe, on this item. Let me pull up my. Okay, and the individual's not on the platform currently. All right. Well, before we move to board member reports, I believe Mr. Bob Gore would like to make comment. It should be on. I think we just have it automatically on these days.
I was reading the fine print.
Yeah.
My apologies for the late comment. I wanted to add to Darren's recognition of staff for the response to the fires. These tragedies have a prolonged impact of a significant nature on careers, and the performance of the water board staff has been exemplary to a very fraught and prolonged crisis response. I can say that because my wife, who retired after 40 years a year ago, lasted 2 weeks, and the governor called her back to Cal OES to help with as an acting deputy director, and I didn't see her for 6 months. So it was an unusual kind of low-key in terms of staff impact crisis. So your staff deserves a lot of recognition for this. And I will also add some of her cookies are there before you leave. She's a baker as well. So thank you, and I apologize again.
Oh, no apologies in the least, Mr. Gore. I really appreciate that acknowledgement, and I will definitely be having a cookie, so thank you. All right, that now brings us to board member reports. Looking to fellow board colleagues, if there's anything to report, hopefully just a lot of great family time and holiday to report out.
No report.
Thank you, board member.
I Because we didn't have a second board meeting in
right.
December, there were a couple weeks there where I was not on holiday. December 3rd, I attended the Aqua Conference. I actually did not speak at the Aqua Conference for the first time in many Aqua conferences, so that was a different experience, and I appreciated that. December 11th, I had the opportunity to attend the Safer Advisory Group meeting, which in Salinas, which was great. I was really thrilled to be a part of that discussion that morning, and then in the afternoon was able to attend a portion of their tour to one of the drinking water sites at one of the schools in the area, and that was also very educational and helpful for me to see. On December 12th, I joined up with the Central Coast Regional Board, and they were doing a site visit of Chevron's Guadalupe cleanup site south of San Luis Obispo. And that was remarkable, actually, to see the level of cleanup and restoration that they've done in that area to counter historic well drilling, well production operations there that were very devastating to the coast. You probably have heard about that in recent decades. And they're nearing, the cleanup operations are going to be continuing for some time, but they're nearing a point where they'll be able to hand off much of the land and actually considering reopening it to the public. So it'll be really exciting to see that really treasured space go back to public benefit. And then on the 19th of December, last item, I was able to go up to Fort Bragg, where we were fortunate enough to be able to provide the city with a $12 million grant to upgrade their drinking water treatment plant. So it's really always, as an engineer, as I always say, very exciting to see infrastructure and pipes and new filters and things of that nature. So I enjoyed that visit, but also just reflected on the water supply challenges that Fort Bragg has had during the 2014 drought. I think you may recall their normal diversion supply for that water treatment plant from the river was the river was drying up, literally. And we were fortunate enough to be able to help the city with an emergency desalination package unit. They still have that unit on standby because they're still, even with the upgrades, they're still sort of sensitive to hydrology in that area. And they're actually pilot testing another desal technology right now. I don't know where it will go with them, but it's a wave generated desalination facility, floating buoy system. So I'll be learning a little bit more about that. Anyway, just despite the rain that we've been having, and I know it's been raining quite a bit in the Northwest, it's just being mindful that even those areas are sensitive to drought as well and need to keep investing in water resilience. That's all I had.
That's great. Thank you, board member. On December 3rd, I was on an Aqua panel. I also attended the Association of California Water Agencies. It was on accounting in the Delta. Letitia from the Public Policy Institute of California on their Water Policy Center was on the panel along with someone from the State Water Project contractors, Chandra. And then on December 11th, I was down in San Diego for a joint informational hearing on the Tijuana River. Was planning on actually attending the tour in Salinas, but called away, and glad we have 5 of us here so we can all spread the state. And then between then the 17th and 18th, I was in Las Vegas at the Colorado River Water Users Association convening conference. And so that was good to be there. Was there in my capacity as, a member of the Salinity Forum and Western States Water Council, just kind of keeping ear to the ground a bit. And we have, challenges on the Colorado we may have heard as well. And so actually we'll likely be having an update here on the Colorado River from the Colorado River Board. We've had that periodically. It's going to be time for another. And so it was good to be there, though, and connect with colleagues and folks. Vice Chair.
So I too participated in the Safer Advisory Group meeting, and just some thoughts. It was really well attended. The discussion was just very collaborative amongst the advisory committee members and others that were there. The room was full, and I'm really glad that I was able to be there. And then also participated in the tour, Echo Valley School. It's a regionalization project, but they've been provided with bottled water, due to contaminated wells. And they were very appreciative of the role that the SAFER program has played. And then for me, probably the most impactful moment was going out to, I'm just looking at the agenda here, it was Stop to McGinnis Road in Watsonville. And this is an area where there are a lot of domestic wells and septic systems. And what really struck me was just how the community had come together as a result of these contamination issues. Neighbors that saw each other in the past, and then because a couple of neighbors took this on and started advocating, now it's a very tight-knit, you could just feel the closeness. There were a number of people at this stop basically there to thank us because this is leading toward a consolidation project. And, in the meantime, there's a study and they see a pathway. So they were just very much appreciative of our role. But also, it just reminded me of the importance of well testing upon the transfer of property. So these are primarily people of color that have worked their entire life to get enough money to buy a house, and then they buy it without knowing that the well is contaminated. And so I know that this is something that we've talked about, a ledge proposal. It just has never really gotten off the ground. But in the meantime, I think that it's a valuable use of resources to provide outreach so that people don't unwittingly fall into this sort of a trap when they use their hard-earned money to purchase a home.
You're here. Thank you, Vice Chair. Board Member Morgan.
And I do not have a report.
Fantastic. Thank you. That brings us to our Executive Director's report. Executive Director Oppenheimer, what do you have for us?
A couple things to highlight. First, Division of Water Rights issued 3 5-year temporary groundwater recharge permits. Just wanted to mention that because it's timely. Hopefully the permittees were able to take advantage of these recent storms. So hopefully that worked out. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, there's a write-up from our Office of Information Management and Analysis on a tribally centered freshwater harmful algal bloom monitoring training series that they're working on. I actually wasn't aware of it until I saw the write-up in the report, so I thought I'd highlight it for others. There's 3 sessions coming up this quarter, I believe January, February, and March. Looks like a great opportunity for tribal environmental departments and our staff. And that's it for this month.
Thank you. Thank you for elevating that. When I had seen that, I think there was like an email blast that came across at one point. Was just as well really glad to see that work ongoing. And I know that a lot of it was developed with, I know, tribes up in Clear Lake and others. So I just really appreciate the continued evolving relationship with our tribes on those issues. Thank you. All right. Nothing from board members on Executive Director's report. Then that brings us to the end of the public component of this board meeting. We will retreat into closed session. I believe at this point we can either retreat or go to 2540.
Unfortunately, the first room we have available is at 11:30.
Okay, that's what, yeah.
And we can go to 2540 at 11:30 and have that for approximately 3 hours. And then it will be available again at 2:45, or at noon, we can go to 2550 for the entire afternoon.
Yeah, we'll just say at this point, let's get to 2540 at 11:30, and then we'll play things from there. And yeah, we'll have to take a lunch somewhere in there, but we'll figure it out. Let's just get started at 11:30 then. Gives folks about an hour here before we do. If that works. Okay.
And Chair Esquivel, I believe the only discussions today are on the sites applications as opposed to the 2 items that are noticed. We will not be convening on the water Delta conveyance project from the Department of Water Resources.
Yep. Thank you for that, Mr. Lawfer. Yeah, we'll just retreat and discuss sites. And other than that, thank you, everyone. Happy New Year here. See what 2026 brings. We will be adjourned after closed session, but otherwise, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks, everyone. Be safe, be well. Our next board meeting is on Wednesday, January 21st. Thanks all. We'll see you then.